Welcome to Perspectives in Peds, or PIP for short, your go-to podcast for insights into paediatric practice. From clinical approaches and emerging research to the everyday wins and challenges, we bring you OT perspectives that inform, inspire and spark conversation. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Mads.
Hello.
Welcome back to Pipcast.
Thanks.
We are here to talk about handwriting, but sort of not handwriting. Handwriting and when we might move on from handwriting. We as OTs get referrals all the time for handwriting, and it's a very big part of what we do. But I know that a lot of clinicians are often faced for many different reasons, which we're going to kind of go into. But when is it kind of time to stop the handwriting intervention and move on, and what do we move on to? So thank you both for joining me on this topic. And I'd really like to kind of kick off with when we are working on handwriting with a child, what are we actually aiming for? And how do we know when we've kind of gotten to a point where we're like, yeah, it's time to, like, we've achieved that goal?
Such a good question, and it's without giving a non-answer, like it's like so different for every child, right? Like what functional handwriting looks like for one child is going to be totally different for another, and depending on, you know, their age, what their handwriting engagement currently looks like, what their goals are going to be. There's no one set answer.
Yep.
So I'm thinking like for, you know, more typically like my prep age clients, like handwriting is going to be really focusing on those core fundamental skills to generalize.
Yeah.
And then for older teen clients, like what a functional goal might be for them is going to look totally different in terms of handwriting, or more around their handwriting based occupations. Is how I'd probably think of it more for older clients as well.
Yeah. What about you, Mads? What do you think of when you're thinking of like, what are you actually trying to achieve?
I think Em nailed the answer. But yeah, so I agree with everything that she said. I think it's so important to know that it looks so different for so many different kids, as well as like what are the goals, I think is the most important thing to know.
It can be hard when we are working with families, like setting handwriting goals when families don't genuinely know what comes into handwriting as well, because a lot of the time, like I've got a child at the moment that I'm working on, like I say, like with quotation around it, handwriting, but it's not actually his handwriting that we're working on. We're actually working on strategies for him to be able to come up with ideas, because he's really quite anxious when handwriting tasks are presented. But initially mum and dad were like, handwriting is the priority there. So thinking about all the skills that come into handwriting is really important, and helping families understand that. And we'll definitely talk more about that. But when we're thinking about like what we're actually aiming for, sometimes it's not even
it's not handwriting.
Like, improving legibility or something like that.
And there's been so many times where like I've had families come in to the intake with handwriting, like their goals are around handwriting, but we actually identify that like it's not the actual action of handwriting. It might be something like the executive functioning side of things. So
And when we're talking about this theme of when to move on, we are more so thinking about when handwriting is no longer clinically the best option for this child in front of us. So not necessarily just like it's just time to move on from this goal kind of because we haven't made progress or that kind of thing. It's like, well, what are we moving to? Have either of you got a like an example, or can you think of a client previously where you were working on handwriting broadly and then you kind of had that moment of like, this is not going where I was hoping it was going, and what did that look like for you?
Yes. Actually, funnily enough, Em saw the client before me and then got handed over to me. So I think Em worked really hard with the family to understand like functional handwriting goals, because I think the family was, you know, really wanting to focus on the actual formation and spacing and sizing of the handwriting. And due to her age being 14, 15, we sort of supported the family to understand, like, from a functional perspective, what are we actually aiming for?
Yeah.
So we moved on to filling out forms. So identifying what she might need the handwriting for in the future, and identifying that a lot of her work is now on the laptop or typing. So she actually doesn't need to be handwriting a full essay. So from a functional perspective, she may need to fill out forms still when she's older, Mikey forms, doctor forms. So, yeah, we really focused on, I guess, how can we support her to develop her handwriting on forms. So
love that.
Spacing, can we fit it all in this space, all of that sort of stuff.
So in that case as well, it wasn't necessarily I've moved on from handwriting as a goal, but more what's the outcome that we're aiming to achieve and helping the parents to figure out what function looks like there.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Yep. And did you have any examples or anything that pops to mind for you?
Oh, I do. I think Maddie has kind of nailed it in terms of like coming back to like what is the function for this child. And a lot of examples that come to mind for me are clients who have come with handwriting goals, or we've eventually ended up with handwriting goals. And those kind of examples where after however many months of therapy and intervention and knowing the family have been, say, really consistent with their homework and everything's actually gone according to plan, but we're not seeing any functional progress, and kind of getting to that point of going, I think something else may be going on here.
Yeah.
And I don't know that handwriting is going to continue to be our best course of action for this child.
Yeah. So sometimes like a plateau or a lack of progress despite the family, doing all their therapy homework between sessions and being really open to transferring things into the classroom environment, that kind of thing. Sometimes a plateau or lack of progress can be like a signal to us that something's,
there's more to the story.
More there, and perhaps we need to shift or pivot. Yeah. Are there any other things that you think of or consider, or other signals that might help you kind of make that decision to take a different approach? Let's go, Mads. Sorry, I really need to say Mads so we don't just talk over each other.
I think as well, the child. So the child's motivation to handwriting, in session, but as well as that motivation to do it outside of session, the practice. Yeah. If the child's not wanting to do it, it's going to be really hard to continue to do it, and it's just not really fair as well on the child.
Especially if there is different options.
Exactly. And if there is actually like an underlying possible diagnosis there, the reason for making handwriting really hard, and we're sort of just continuing to do the same thing, continuing to just practice that handwriting, it becomes not fair on the child.
Really hard for their confidence as well. And when they're putting in the effort and they're trying and they're not making those gains, it's really, really difficult for the kids in those scenarios.
And then could impact on engagement even more if it's sort of consistent, I can't do this, or I'm not getting any better. That's when, that engagement in those tasks could really be impacted.
And it's funny because I don't know about you guys, but like I'm very much broadly speaking here. Like if I look at the platter of goal areas that I work on, like generally handwriting is one of the like easier ones to work on, like broadly speaking. But if you've got kids that are just having absolute whacks to their self-esteem, and so it's leading to, really big like emotions in therapy sessions because they're like, I have to go and see Caitlin to work on that thing that I hate and it hurts and it's hard and that kind of thing. It just like the actual sessions can feel really pointless sometimes. You're like, why am I pushing this kid to do something so incredibly difficult? For them, and what other options can I present to them? Yeah. Are there any other like you mentioned kind of possible diagnoses and that kind of thing, but what kinds of other things might you think about then, diagnostic groups where persisting with like written expression might not be the only option?
I would be thinking about things like dyspraxia or DCD or an SLD in written expression, where due to the nature of those diagnoses, either, we've got a client with DCD or dyspraxia, like they're going to need that errorless learning. And I guess the feasibility of that in a day-to-day sense, they very well might be able to do their handwriting practice with support from me in the clinic or with support from the parents at home, but then thinking about that component of errorless learning and that explicit teaching that's required, like without one-to-one support or significant support in the classroom, like that is really, really challenging for the child.
Weirdly high level of self-awareness that they're able to do that for them somewhat independently.
Yeah, for them to be self-motivated and have the self-awareness to monitor that independently. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm yet to meet any kids who come in and they're like, let's I want to do it. It's pretty tricky. So that would definitely be a consideration.
Yeah, whether it's diagnosed or, like you said earlier, Mads, not yet diagnosed, but maybe, signals might be indicating that might be a path we need to go down as well.
I guess as well, typically with those diagnoses, dyslexia, SLD and written expression, they tend to say they need at least 6 months of failed intervention before they're even going to diagnose. So typically they want to see that stint of
the lack of progress, essentially.
To diagnose.
Yeah. One of the trickiest parts, I would say, of moving from like handwriting to presenting alternative options or directions is having that conversation with families, particularly when you've got families that have literally come saying, we want to work on handwriting.
Yep.
How do you navigate these kinds of conversations? What helps? What have you found in that context?
I think coming back to trying to get to the essence of what the family wants and what is that, and acknowledging that for the families and saying, I hear how important it is for you guys that, your kid has a bunch of great ideas, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for them to translate that and get that across, or it ends in a meltdown every time they sit down to do a writing task. And, based on my understanding of the evidence and my clinical reasoning and what I know about you guys, these are my ideas to actually help with the essence of what they're after and trying to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
And I think, being really purposeful in explaining that really clearly so that families understand it is not just that I'm sick of working on this because we're getting nowhere. It's actually this is for like the greater good.
Yeah. I have a plan. I have a direction.
Yeah.
I need you to trust me kind of process.
Like we're not just handballing because it's, maybe sessions do end in big emotions or big meltdowns and we're, it's not that we're sick of it.
Yeah, it's too hard.
Yeah. It's just that we really truly have a different plan that we feel would benefit the kid and the family.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit better.
And something we mentioned earlier, which is what we talked about when we were kind of thinking about this episode, is helping families to understand all of the skills that are required within like a handwriting task.
Yeah.
And simply like just because we're suggesting we take the pencil out of their hand doesn't mean that they can't still engage in some kind of like written expression to some degree. It just might look a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kinds of things then like do you think parents and caregivers do need to understand about that? Because, I guess we do get a lot that are like their handwriting's just messy or that kind of thing. So what other skills – I know that this could go on for ages. I'm like, well, hang on. Generally, what kinds of things are we still supporting parents to think about that like if we can ease the physical load of handwriting, it will allow what skills to kind of flourish as well?
I think just, stressing that when you look at a handwriting task, like let's say, for example, writing a story, a child is writing a story, there is the actual handwriting, trying to make it legible so someone can read it. So formation, spacing, baseline, all of that sort of stuff. Then they also have to be thinking of what they're going to write. So generating those ideas constantly. It's not just sort of a once-off thing. It's
you
constantly.
Think of an idea and you go.
Yeah. It's constantly throughout the whole story. They're going to have to be generating ideas. There's also the spelling.
Yep.
Um,
And the grammar and the
Yep.
punctuation and everything that comes into that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's maintaining your attention on that task for a long time. Sitting in a chair.
That's a lot.
There is so many. And again, the list is endless.
Yeah.
We could go on and, really nitpick, but they're sort of generally those executive functioning, handwriting, spelling, grammar.
Yeah. And so allowing families to, when you have those conversations, to say like, yes, we're suggesting alternatives to the physical act of writing here, but if it allows them to, generate ideas with more confidence and ease, or get their ideas out, that kind of thing, like that's actually going to lead to more functional outcomes.
Yes, exactly. Or, remain calm and regulated to be able to complete the task instead of feeling really frustrated or dysregulated or just physically uncomfortable, for example.
Yeah.
And even just like the fatigue as well, like the cognitive fatigue that some kids with handwriting difficulties would experience. Like if they're doing handwriting in the morning, they've still got a whole day of school. So just even reducing the demands in the classroom to support that engagement.
So when you think of, okay, it's time to pivot, I need to put that out to the family that there are other options, what do you move on to? Like what are some of the options that we have here to really support that child's participation, particularly, I guess, in learning environments is one of the bigger places that they're going to be writing.
For ease of transferability, touch typing is often kind of my first initial thought. We know these days kids spend a lot of time on their laptops anyway and typing. So if we can find a way to make that more functional and fluid and improve their typing skills, that's a really nice kind of starting point in terms of that line of thinking. But other times it's things like having a scribe or voice to text or other strategies in that way. But again, it's working with the child and the family and the school environment, wherever these kind of handwriting goals are apparent, of actually what's going to be feasible and realistic in that particular setting as well.
Yeah. And it might be a shift in method. It might be a shift in like outcome, like you said, like let's just stop working on the letter families, but let's work on them learning like their name, their address, their phone number, that kind of thing. So it feels a bit more outcome driven.
Yeah.
I know as well, like for one of my kids, and I've done this over the years with multiple kids, that suggesting things like typing and voice to text or scribing can be a really great tool for when the child is doing like drafts or just trying to get their ideas out, that kind of thing, so they can get something out. To then go, all right, once we can eliminate the cognitive loads of thinking of your ideas, of spelling, of all of that kind of thing, and we can get it into a digital copy of some form, then if they want to write, it is a matter of simply just copying. They don't have to worry about all the other demands, I suppose. And so that can be a really like practical strategy for teachers, I would say, as well, because they're kind of like, I don't want to just stop writing completely. So how can we adapt it? I would say that's probably one of the more common pathways that I tend to go down with my kids as well.
Definitely. I guess looking at, not only upskilling the child, but also the environment and like the parents, the teachers, how can they support that engagement in those tasks, as well as like possibly reducing the demands of the actual handwriting task in the classroom too. Grading it. So maybe instead of 5 sentences, that child is doing 2 because that's within, that's that just right challenge for the child.
Yeah. And individualizing that, because what the rest of the class is writing might not be a just right challenge for the client that you're working with as well. That brings me to sort of that question around because the rollout of these strategies is sometimes the hardest part, because we see it works in the therapy room, but I feel like we often get pushback from teachers because they're like, well, I just don't have the manpower to sit and, scribe for them and support 23 other students in the classroom, or, oh, that's a really good idea, but they don't have access to an iPad for voice to text or that kind of thing. Like when we're thinking about the rollout of these things, what's important for you guys? Like what comes to mind for me is having meetings with schools and thinking about how can we get these strategies written into ILP plans and stuff.
Yeah.
But we also spoke about that the things we move on to are also skills in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a matter of just saying, okay, well, this kid will now just be typing, for example, and then that's all done. Like that actually needs to be taught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we spoke about practice earlier.
Yes.
So then I guess what would your therapy maybe look like if you're like, all right, we're stopping handwriting now? What are you doing in sessions?
Well, it definitely depends on what mode you choose.
Yep.
But I guess, as you guys were saying, typing still is a skill and a skill that children don't just pick up as soon as you put a laptop in front of them.
Yep.
So, explicitly teaching that typing.
Yeah.
I know there's like a few apps and a few websites that we use in session. So definitely that explicit teaching of the typing skill. But I guess also something that I've done is setting up like a practice plan with the family and the child, just because I guess the importance of practicing or learning a new skill, it's huge. Like practice is so important when learning a new skill.
Yeah.
So we need to, figure out ways to support the family to practice at home and trying to, I guess, make that as easy as possible for them so it doesn't feel like this big thing that they have to do. It's more like in their routine. So, collaborating with the child of when would you feel like practicing, or when do you feel like it's the best to practice? And then, creating a bit of a practice plan where they can like tick it off or put a sticker on depending on the age or even if it's on their phones. So not only the explicit teaching of the skill, but also like how are we going to support them to practice it outside of session.
Yeah. And using it in the classroom is not necessarily practice.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Like if, it's like when I say, if you want to work on handwriting, like we're not just practicing handwriting in the classroom or when they're doing their homework for school, like we need handwriting practice.
Yeah.
And so similarly, it's like, all right, if we're going down the voice to text path, like let's practice what that looks like and what does practice actually look like at home.
Yep. And what scaffolds are going to be needed to go from practicing it in session with Caitlin to actually doing it in the school setting, because there's a lot of steps in between that for a child to actually be able to use it independently as well.
If we've got anyone listening that is perhaps like, maybe I need to move on with this kid or okay, this has confirmed it for me. Like what would you suggest some sort of practical things they could do to kind of ascertain, all right, my pivoting is the right direction to go in?
I think something that I have found to be quite helpful is if you're feeling like you need a pivot due to like the child's motivation or, the child really isn't keen on this goal, something that I've done in the past is like an importance scale in relation to handwriting.
Love that.
So like we know that handwriting is tricky and maybe I start with like an easy, okay, tricky scale and the child then, sorts the different tasks into whether it's easy, okay, or tricky for them, making sure that there are some things that are going to be easy for them just to boost that self-esteem. But then after that, putting it into an important scale. So not important and important up the other end.
Yeah.
And just sort of seeing where the child puts it, because if they put it in not important,
it's going to be so hard to keep persisting.
Exactly.
It? And interestingly, they might say something like, like holding the pencil or knowing where to put my letters or that kind of thing might be difficult and not important.
Yeah.
But they might put, like being able to engage in a classroom activity like story writing, they might be like tricky but important.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
So how can we boost their engagement in different ways?
Yeah, love that.
Yep. Something I often end up doing with the family as well is kind of going back over the term or the past couple terms and kind of reflecting on what have we been working on, what has worked, what has not worked, and in the conversation of that also around, of course, we've touched on it in brief, but the homework side of things.
Yeah.
Because if we've been working on handwriting and their family have been consistent with their homework, maybe it is time that we need to move on. If they haven't been consistent with their homework, maybe that is a different conversation in itself. And similar to what you were saying before, Mads, of how can we factor this in if it is important to you, or if that is not feasible, like having that kind but clear conversation of if you want to make gains in handwriting and the child wants to make gains in handwriting, this is what is needed. So how do we make this work for you guys?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be incredibly, actually, I wouldn't even say sometimes, all the time. It would be incredibly valuable to talk to the classroom teacher as well, just to see what it actually looks like in day to day. So no, I've had kids in the past where they cannot engage in a handwriting task without their teacher sitting right next to them. But if they are given the opportunity to voice to text, they can do it independently. And looking at like the manpower and the funding and all of that kind of thing, like what are we actually aiming for? Does the teacher care that they have to sit right next to them? Or are they like, you know what, I would love for them to be able to be more independent in this, and what does that look like for this child?
I think that's actually such a fantastic point, and where it's possible, doing some classroom observations I find to be really valuable. I'm thinking of a client in particular who comes into session and they can do beautiful handwriting when it's in the clinic. When they get home and they do their practice, not super interested, and watching them in the classroom, it was so evident that it was like, oh, a lot of their classwork is so incredibly rushed because they're ready to get out to recess, or they can't wait to turn around and chat to their friend. And there's all of these other factors coming back to all of those executive functioning skills that mean a lot of those skills that they can show in the clinic aren't supported in such a way. So I guess what does it look like functionally day to day for them, and seeing that in practice, I find really helpful.
As I kind of said when we started this episode, that handwriting tends to kind of fall broadly into OT domain. But particularly in these cases where we're thinking we might need to take a different approach or direction, how might you lean on other clinicians on the care team, or what might you need from them to help you make those kinds of decisions?
I think it's, as you said, really important for a care team to be involved when there are handwriting challenges, just because I guess based off what we were saying before, there's so many layers to handwriting. You know, we need a speechy on board because is it in relation to the spelling? Is it in relation to like the decoding? That literacy sort of based skills. Like we really need the speechies expertise on that side of things. So I think, even being something that, you know, I've done in the past is having a chat to the family of maybe like it is going to see a speechy first and then come to OT, because maybe the importance of the family right now is the spelling and the literacy side of things. And it's not actually that handwriting. So then, you know, referring the family on to a speechy, I feel has been really helpful.
Yeah,
what about
absolutely.
you, Em?
Yeah, and then to continue on that line of thinking, that way we can rule out anything, for example, an underlying speech or language disorder. Or thinking about when they've got a psych on the care team, like thinking about what is this child's cognitive profile, and are there other broader factors that are impacting in that way. But I wholeheartedly agree with Mads. I guess without more of that fuller picture, we can absolutely, you know, definitely make some progress, but it can get to a bit of a point of there's a bit of a missing piece in some instances.
Also, like I've my little one that I was talking about earlier, where it was more their confidence around their capacity to spell and that kind of thing, versus like I had multiple meetings with the teachers being like, is spelling a concern from an academic perspective? Like, are you actually concerned with their level compared to their peers? And do we need speechy or tutor or, you know, more targeted practice? Or is it anxiety as
Yeah.
well, because that might also be, I mean, we do a lot of anxiety work, but if there is an anxiety disorder present or that kind of thing, there might be a psych involved that might already be kind of addressing that in some degree. It really, in this case, probably is a whole team decision, and it needs to be because we need everyone kind of banding together and implementing the changes so that it's transferable and it sticks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm going to do some little finishing kind of things. I don't want you to think too far into this though. So handwriting and typing for your own notes, what do you find easier?
Typing.
Yeah.
Typing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I use a lot of therapeutic use of self with my handwriting clients.
Yes.
Maddie, Katie, you've seen my pencil grasp. Handwriting is not functional for me if I had to handwrite my notes.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
I actually couldn't. I genuinely couldn't do it. I'm laughing, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I empathise if you're a clinician listening and you do have to handwrite.
Yeah.
notes.
Absolutely. Something short, handwriting, but the fact of it being long, typing, like the length of it.
Interesting. Nah, I'm always going typing.
Same.
Really?
Yeah, always.
Nah, I do love
It's funny if I
love
whip out
little-
a pencil, and this is the thing, like I say this, like you just said, Em, I say this to families, like my hand gets tired
Yeah.
very quickly because I don't have the strength in my hand anymore.
Yeah.
I wrote my 3-hour English exam back in the day and that kind of thing. That was probably the longest thing I've ever written and still to this day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, when you
absolutely.
look back at that,
That's insane.
like 3 hours of full handwriting.
I know.
Talk about a functional goal. Oh my God.
Yes. All
Not for
right.
me.
What's one thing that you wish every teacher understood about handwriting difficulties?
That's a really good one.
Oh no, you said don't think too much
Yeah, I know.
about it, but
Sorry.
there's so many thoughts.
I guess it's something that we've stressed throughout this whole thing is how much is involved in a handwriting task
Yeah, great.
for the one individual. So like we didn't even go into the sensory environment.
Yeah.
Like, how many demands there are on a child
Yeah.
when doing a handwriting task.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess to take that idea and flip it, just focusing on what is success in this task for this child. Is it the writing or is it getting some ideas down on a page or on a screen or whatever it looks like?
I feel like I say this to teachers for a whole range of goal areas, but like if they could, they would. So why aren't they?
Yeah.
Like what is it about the task that is just not meeting where their skills are currently at or their motivation or their, all of the above? Because like you said, Mads, like it is so multi-layered and there's so many skills involved. And so if they could just pick up the pencil and engage in that handwriting task independently, they would be.
Yeah.
What is it that isn't aligning or matching up there?
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate both of your interesting perspectives on this case. And I hope that anyone listening, if you're thinking about, I think it's time for me to pivot or take a different direction, that this has been hopefully helpful. And I will see you both on the couch next time.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.